Hey, it's Doug from the Rise Above Gym channel. And are you a soccer player looking for exercises that increase your kicking power? Well, I got you covered. Let's check it out. In this video, I didn't want to go over the basic exercises like the squat and the deadlift, which are great exercises, and yes, they will increase your strength, which will translate over to greater kicking power. But I wanted to give you kicking specific exercises. And also maybe some you haven't done before. That will give you kind of that edge to get over a hump maybe that you're just kicking the same or kicking with the same amount of power, and then these exercises might get you over the top and take you to a new level. The first thing we really need to focus on is mobility, and particularly hip mobility. So I would recommend doing these exercises daily, doing them before a workout or even at the end of the night just to loosen up so you wake up the next day refreshed. The first one we're going to do is a hip flexor. So the hip flexor is a muscle that runs off the quads up high into the hip and it brings the knee upward. It does a few other things, but that's the primary function. Now when you sit in class all day, as if I'm sitting here, this muscle here, if I bring my knee up like this, gets shorter. Now if I'm not able to open the hip up by lengthening it here, I'm not going to get that leg drawn back far enough to kick with more power. So if you're a student athlete and you're sitting for hours a day, this is a great one to do. I also call this the watching TV exercise because you can watch TV and do it. I'm going to go at a little bit of an angle here. I'm going to tuck my tailbone so I'm underneath myself. I'm going to tighten my glute a little bit, and I'm just going to pulse forward without losing that tuck, so I don't want to do this. It's very easy to just kind of be relaxed here and move. I want to tuck and sink, and I'm actually prying this down, so I'm kind of pulling down in the hip to open that up. And I'm just going to pulse forward. I'm using both legs evenly. I'm trying to keep my chest up. You can change angles a little bit, so I can kind of open up a little bit more this way. You can also make it a little more advanced by grabbing the rear leg, bringing that foot in, and moving. So now I'm getting a little bit more of a quad and hip flexor stretch as I'm doing it. I'm just pulsing back and forth. The second one we're going to do is abduction. So abduction is bringing something away from the body. One I like to do is the abducted rock back. So I'm going to bring my foot out straight and flat. I'm going to have my hands on the mat here. I'm going to have my knee underneath me. I'm going to lift my chest and I'm going to rock back. So I'm going to go, and I say just like where I'm knocking on the door resistance. So I feel a little resistance here, and I'm going to rock forward on the other side. And I'll show you in a second when I turn. I want to keep my tailbone neutral. So I don't want it too tucked and I don't want it too arched. So I want it kind of neutral. I'm going to rock back and rock forward. It's very easy to kind of lose it here, so I want to kind of keep that stable, especially when I'm going back. And I want to try to open up that hip. So the hip's going to move in a bunch of ways. When you kick, your hip's going to slightly rotate to find the ball and find that good angle where you can kick with power. The next one we're going to do is hip rotation. So I'm going to be on all fours. I'm going to tuck my tailbone so I'm neutral, and I'm going to slowly isolate one leg in a circle. And I'm going to rotate here, and I'm going to sweep through. This one I recommend going very slowly because it's very easy to go fast and not get the good range of motion we want. And try to get to the end range, so those little corners where you're tight, you want to slowly work your way through them. This one I also recommend going the opposite direction. So abducting the leg, rotating, and sweeping through. Also another thing I'm doing is I'm keeping that low back still. So when I extend, I'm not losing that low back. I'm keeping it tucked. Right there I extend, because if I go a little further, I'm going to start to lose it. So I'm going to keep it there. Then I rotate, sweep through. I'll show you one the other way. Abduct right to the end as much as I can. Rotate without dropping the leg too much. And sweeping through. So that one's great to go very slow and also going in both directions. The slower you go, finding those little corners where they're tight and working your way through them are going to be a good way to open up the hips for your kicking power. Next, we're going to do thoracic rotation. So thoracic is the upper back. We do want to get some rotation there. So when you kick, your body's not stiff. You're going to open up this area so you can get a little more swing back so you can kick through. So if we're tight, we're not going to be able to open up as much as we want no matter how loose our hips are. So we want to get that component together. So what I like to do is all fours, neutral hip, hand on the back of the head. I'm going to rotate elbow to elbow and rotate out of it. What I'm not doing is lifting. So I'm trying to rotate out and then back. And again, rotate out. There's a little bit of lifting, but I'm not lifting to fake the flexibility. I want to turn my upper back. The other thing you may notice is I'm not turning my hips or shifting my hips to counter it that much either. So I'm just keeping my hips still, rotating, 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 and then back. And I'll do about 10 or so of those. Lastly, in our workouts, we tend to focus a lot on calf raises and other exercise, toe raises like this, but we actually want to stretch out the front of the leg or the shin, anterior tibialis. Because when we kick, especially like a full-blown strike where the toe is down, we want to stretch that muscle out. If we're not able, if this muscle is tight and it's constantly pulling our toes up, and that happens a lot with running, we're not going to get a lot of power because we're not able to get our foot in that proper position and drawn back so we can get more power through the ball. This one's simple. I'm just going to put my toe here and I'm just going to pulse forward and pulse back, stretching out as much as I can. The front, you can rotate a little bit, just wiggle around, get that different direction. But I'm just going to pulse forward and then try to stretch out that anterior tibialis, that front of that shin, the best I can so I can have full range of motion in the ankle to strike the ball with power. So those are the mobility exercises I would do daily or before your practice or warm-up. Next, we'll get into the strength exercises. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I want to go over more specific kicking exercises rather than the traditional ones like the squats and the deadlift variations. So one I like, and these are cheap, you can get them pretty much anywhere, Perform Better, Power Systems, even Amazon, Miniband hip and knee drop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this around my foot on both toe boxes. It's better if I hold on to something in the front, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to do it this way. And what I want to do is tuck my tailbone a little bit and practice driving. Just straight up. When I drive, I don't crunch. I'm keeping tall, driving up, driving up. You can alternate, you can reset, drive, drive. So what that's going to mimic is that drive from the hip and forward. Yeah, we don't kick a ball straight up too much, but we do need some hip drive through the ball and stability on that other leg to kick through. So that is a good way to practice resistance safely using that leg and that hip to drive your hip for power. The next exercise we're going through are two types of lunges. I like lunges in different directions because they do serve different purposes even though they're technically the same. So the first one is the forward lunge. So the forward lunge is going to mimic deceleration. So when we kick, we plant one leg. That leg has to decelerate our body, stabilize, so the action leg can come through properly and finish the movement. If we do not have that strength or stability, our kicks are going to be weak and we're going to, not have them going in the right direction, or they're just going to roll a couple feet. So what we're going to do with the forward lunge is as simple as it sounds. I'm going to step forward, decelerate with that front leg, and then come back. So you can use body weight. You can do weighted, holding a kettlebell or 2 dumbbells, but I'd recommend throwing some type of lunge into your workout every workout. So you can do forward lunge one day. You can do the next one when I'm going to show you the other day. But again, I'm going to do both legs. You should practice both feet when you're kicking, but work on that deceleration. Now the second one we're going to do is the reverse lunge. So I think the forward lunge that we just did is great for deceleration. The forward lunge is great for acceleration. I'm gonna add a little component that makes it more kicking specific. So we're gonna step back, stretch the rear leg, and then as I come up, I'm gonna drive, okay? Step back, load the rear leg, stabilize and drive. So I'm teaching this leg to stabilize and I'm teaching this leg to move. Drive. Again, you can do them weighted with a kettlebell or 2 dumbbells. So those are 2 different lunges that you can put into a workout, one day, one on the other day. So keeping with the theme of the leg drive with the opposite knee, we're gonna do a step up. Now, I'm gonna get a box that's roughly parallel. You can go a little lower, teeny bit higher, but parallel on that front leg is good. I'm gonna keep my full foot on the box. I'm gonna have a tall body, and I'm gonna think about pushing through the box. As I come up, drive. And I want that stabilization of the drive and drive. So again, the kicking is about stability and being able to drive your hip through. This is a little more upward. So again, the kicks, we're not going up as much, but we're still working that drive and working that stability. And also the nice thing is that deceleration we talked about with the lunge. So when I'm coming back down, I'm working on deceleration to build up a lot of strength in the quads so that we're able to stabilize a little bit better and get a little more power on our kicks. All right, we have one of my favorite and least favorite in the same exercise, the bench split squat. So the bench split squat is a static lunge position movement. I'm gonna have one foot on top. Now it's a personal preference whether you have toe up or flat foot. If you're gonna kick, you may want to get that extra stretch with the flat foot here. Remember we talked about in the mobility, stretching out that anterior tibialis. So I'm going to be here. I'm going to drop straight down and drive up. So I'm actually kicking the bench. I'm pushing through with my foot down, getting that power. Dropping down, decelerating, stretch here, drive up, pushing through that box. So that's another great one. So I'm isometrically putting power and pressure through that bench so it's working those muscles that need to kick the ball with a lot of power. All right, another challenging single leg exercise that you can work on. And then this one's nice because you can start shallow and work the range of motion, and you can also use assistance, is the shrimp squat. So a shrimp squat, sometimes I call it an airborne squat too, is gonna be one leg up, one leg down on the ground, and you're just gonna drop down, reaching back. And again, you can use assistance here. And I'm coming back. I like the TRX, so when I'm teaching my athletes, we're gonna be in this position, reaching back, and they can use the TRX to help get them back up. Now, when I'm extending or going down, I'm extending my rear leg a little bit and swinging through, kind of like a kick. So very mild movement. But I'm learning to decelerate, getting this leg back with control so that way I'm kicking through. And then eventually you can do it without, if you can do body weight and just kind of go down to the floor. I like to have my hands on in front and I'm slowly working my way back up. Now the core is a big component of kicking power. The first thing we're gonna do is rotation. I like bands. So again, they're not very expensive and you can just find an anchor. And then what we're gonna do is work our rotation. So I'm gonna pivot on my foot, rotate through and control back. I want just enough resistance when I feel that I can control it, but also it feels like I'm working my core. So when we kick and shoot, there is that rotation of that upper body and also through the hip that we need to work on to translate more transverse power into the kick. Another one we need is stability. So we talked about that with the deceleration exercises. So we're gonna be here. I'm gonna bring the band straight out, holding like a side plank, and I'm gonna hold my knee up, try to stay right over the center of my foot, and I'll hold for about 30 seconds. And I don't want this to move away from my center, and I want to keep everything aligned. So that is also going to work our balance and stability. So when we land, we're not losing energy. We're strong, stable, and able to kick the ball with a lot of power. So I hope you liked the video. Try these out. Let me know what you think and if you got more power on your kicks. If you like the video, please like it down below. Also consider subscribing for more great content. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.